Hello, and welcome to the Sealab. In this tutorial, I'll walk you through how to get started ordering cabinets through our new platform. For this project, I've made an island, a simple island with 5 cabinets and 2 side panels. I've already defined the dimensions of these items, which is pretty easy to do. You can do it on a pencil and paper or in a CAD program of your choice. Here I've defined the elevation. You don't need this much detail, but I'll show you a few tips and tricks later on that will help you to speed up your ordering process and make it really easy. To get started, we have our first base cabinet is a 3 drawer base cabinet, and it looks like this. In order to find that, I'll just start by searching. And the first one of the first cabinets that pops up is this B1070, and it says base cabinet with 3 drawers, top drawer datum, which we will cover in a little bit. And for now, I'm just going to add this to our cart. The next cabinet is our sink base, and it has 2 doors. So I will look first for a sink, and you can see that we have an array of different options for a sink base. This has a blind front on the top, and this has an apron behind the doors. So this is the one that I want. I'll add that. And then we have our dishwasher. I have a dishwasher cabinet. This object doesn't come with the dishwasher. We don't sell appliances, but it is compatible with most custom panel dishwasher fronts. And we'll look at that in a little while to see why that is super helpful. For these 2 cabinets, we have a simple 3 door configuration. And so let's look and see what we have for this. I'm going to start by filtering for base cabinets, and then I will look at 3 door base cabinets. And I have 2 here, and they look fairly similar. On the internal parts, you can see this one has partition on the right side, and this has partition on the left side. And I think we'll want one of each. And finally, we'll have the side panels. And these are going to be the same material as my cabinet doors. So I want a loose part. Go. This is a single part using front material. And we're going to add 2 because they're the same. Okay, now, so these match the numbering system or the naming system on my drawing. I'm going to start with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1 and 7 are the side panels. So I don't get confused. I'm going to start by renaming these. Island 1, Island 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 for now. Okay, so now we have all the items in our cart. In the next video, I'll show you how to configure all of these items. All right, in our last video, we added all of the cabinets in our project to our shopping cart. Now we're going to configure these cabinets. So the most important part about configuring your cabinet is the dimensions. And here you can see I've added only a few simple dimensions. One thing that we need to pay attention to is the depth is defined to the cabinet box. It doesn't include the cabinet front. So in this case, we have a 3/4 inch cabinet front with a 1/8 gap for the bumper. So our cabinet box is going to be 23 and 1/8 on this side and 12 and 1/8 on this side. And we have a 5-inch chase wall in the middle. So our side panels are going to be 1 inch thick. And so let's start with the island 2 3 drawer base is going to be 23 3/4 by 23 and 1/8. And the height is not defined, but I know that our height is going to be 30.5. So 23 3/4, 30.5, and it's 23.125. And the precision on these dimensions is typically quite good. A CNC router is accurate to about 5 thousandths of an inch. Okay, so moving on to island 3, our sink base 32. So we're going to have 32, and all of these are going to be the same height and the same depth. Moving along, this is going to be 23 and 3/4 by 30 and a half by 23 and 1/8. And then we have 39 and 3/4 and 12 and 1/8 depth. So now our dimensions are set except for the side panels, and our side panels are going to be 42, and the height is going to be 34 and a half. So there is no depth on these because it's just a single part. So the width will be the size of the island, and the height is 34 and a half. Okay, once we have our dimensions set, the rest of the configurations can be handled here in this edit page, this edit configurations page. But before we do that, we're going to explore the global settings. So these are the settings that are going to be managed throughout the project. And of course, you might want one cabinet to have a different settings from the rest, which is totally possible. But for now, let's explore our case materials are any plywood that is regionally distributed here in the Northeast. And the most common one we found is going to be 3/4 pre-finished maple, although you can use any material on our list here or any other material that you want. We typically recommend that for the carcass, we're going with the 3/4 material. And that's just because you can run into problems with the hardware not functioning correctly with thicker or thinner carcass. But you can select this if you want, if you know how to work around it, if you know how to customize your configuration, you can do it how you want. From material, you have the same list of options. In this case, 3/4 Medex is the brand name moisture resistant MDF, which is suitable for kitchens and bathrooms. Back panel is going to be our pre-finished maple again, 1/2 inch. Moving down, we have the joint method. The joint method is something that is typically a shop specific. Some shops would use biscuits for alignment, which is how we use them, and then screwed together butt joints. You can, of course, select no connector and then use whichever type of joinery that you want. Biscuit screw connection we found to be fast and strong and reliable. You might opt to remove this screw if you have a finished side panel and you don't want to see the screw hole. Back panels, inset would be for removable back. This is useful if you have the back panel needs to be installed after the cabinet, or it might be removable. Applied is where the back panel is basically planted onto the back of the cabinet and screwed in. For plywood core cabinets, that is veneer core plywood cabinets, the applied back panel with screws is usually strong enough for most applications. If you're using particle board or MDF for your cabinet, then this might not be as strong. Rabbited usually is when the side panel is meant to be finished and exposed all along the side. Tongue and groove is where the back panel is inset, and this will be typically if you're making wall hanging cabinets and you want to have some recess on the back of the cabinet for a French cleat or other mounting system. For this island, applied is perfect. The edge banding, again, we have a range of options which are commonly available, and there are thousands of other edge bandings that could be used, and we're using automatic edge bander. If you don't see the kind of edge banding that you'd like to use, feel free to reach out and we may be able to accommodate you. Again, we have the same range of options for the front edge. In this case, we're painting because we're using MDF, so we don't need an edge banding. The hinge plate has either the cross, which is the typical European hinge mounting plate, or the inline, which is the newer version. It's a little bit nicer looking. It's the one we typically use for all of our hardware, including drawer glides and hinge plates. We use the 5 millimeter system screw mounting. So it's a 5 millimeter hole for these hinge plates. And then for the drawers, you have the choice of ordering 5/8 or ½ inch or none. This will, of course, change the size of the drawer box if you know anything about how undermount glides are configured. You have to add a quarter of an inch to the width if you're using a 5/8 box. But this will become apparent why we allow this selection later on. Even if we're not supplying the drawer boxes for you, you'll want to know the correct dimension of that for your own purposes. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Now, before we move on, we have to apply the settings, and it says select items to apply. And in this case, we'll go ahead and select all and then apply. And now all of the items that are using those settings are configured. For the most part, this is our whole project. There's a few other settings that we'll click through and see what we need to change. Okay, now that we've configured our global settings, we're going to go into the individual items and see if there are any more settings that need to be configured. To start with, on this island cabinet, we don't want to use 3/4 for the front. We want to use 1 inch. So we'll change that setting. On a loose part like this, we also let you choose which edges you want to be edge banded, if any. And this can be really handy because now you can take this part and use it for any purpose. You can build your own cabinet with it, or you can make a desktop or side panel or anything else that you would want a pre-cut, pre-edge banded part for. Okay. For our other cabinets, let's click through and see what other settings we have. Okay, so on our 3-drawer base, if you recall, this description says that it has a top drawer datum. Let's scroll down and see if there's anything that we can spot. We set all these with the global settings, but here is the top drawer height. And this has a little description. It says what the parameters are. And this is basically so that on all the cabinets that have this variable, which includes many of the ones with the top drawer or sink base, that height will match across the entire project. So typically, when most designers are looking at the drawers, they don't really care what the size of the bottom drawers are as long as the reveals, horizontal lines between the fronts all line up. So we can guarantee that by setting this. And in this case, I'm just going to make it arbitrary, 6.5. Okay. The bottom panel, we can add leg levelers, which we will because they are very useful. And we'll note that we also have some handy plinth bases, which would need to be added as separate items because this would span across multiple cabinets. And these could get configured the same way as any other cabinet. In fact, on the height, you can make it up to 48. You can make it up to 96 wide and up to 48 deep, which is a very large object. But most plinths are going to be somewhere around 4 inches high. And then, yes, that should be obvious. So let's go back to the configuration of our 3-drawer base. And we're looking at leg levelers. And finally, we get to the gap settings. Now, if you know anything about modern overlay cabinetry, you may know that the gaps or reveals between the fronts are a very important part about making the project look really top notch. And there are lots of different methods of doing this. And so we offer the control for each cabinet to be configured with the gap separately. And so how do you make this work in a way that's fairly straightforward and simple, intuitive? So let's look a little bit closer at this. When we zoom in here, you can see that on the sides, our gap is the same on the side and on the top, but where the cabinet meets a second cabinet, it's smaller so that the left cabinet and the right cabinet share half of the reveal. Same here. And then we have a full reveal on the right. These are set automatically. Okay, you can see that here on the left side cabinet, we have a full 1/8 reveal, but where the cabinets meet, we have a 1/16 and a 1/16. So we're just going to bear that in mind while we're setting these gaps. For our 3-drawer base cabinet, let's just take a look. Okay, so we have this one set on the right is going to be full, and on the left is going to be half. Full right, left half, and the bottom is going to be 0 because it's flush to the bottom of the cabinet. And this can be set however you want. You could, in theory, make the gaps arbitrarily, but we tried to keep it simple, 0, full, or half. And we update and move on. Okay, so on their sink base, we have all the same settings. I'll take a moment to note here, if you exclude the front parts, basically what that means is we're going to still generate all the production data for those fronts, and we will even put the machinings in for the hinges on the inside of the cabinet, but we are not going to produce those parts for you. And this would be very useful if you are doing any kind of custom veneer work where you want the fronts to be made in your own shop, or if you're going to order them from another vendor, that's perfectly okay by us. We'll give you the dimensions to order off. Okay, I'm going to move on. This one is going to also include leg levelers. And here, for our sink bases in the middle, it's going to get a half on the left and a half on the right and 0 on the bottom. Let me update. For the dishwasher, is on the left is going to be full, and on the right is going to be half. So this doesn't have leg levelers because it doesn't have a cabinet. So the left is full and the right is half, and on the bottom is flush. And update. Finally, for our right side unit, okay, and this is going to be on the left side of the island. So we'll put this full left and half right. Okay, looking through. These are all good. And here we have parametric shelves, and we'll cover that in a moment. Okay, so this is going to be a full left and a half right and a flush on the bottom. Parametric means that things are automatically adjusted based on the overall dimensions. And if you look at the dimensions for the shelves, we put one shelf every 10 inches, or you can specify the number of shelves that you want. So here we're going to put 2 shelves in these cabinets. Date. And finally, on this cabinet, it's the opposite. It's going to be a full right and a half left. Yes. 2, full right, half left, 0 bottom, date. And that's it for the configuration. Now, if you do have any special instructions that you'd like us to consider, we will take a look at those before processing. And if not, then we are ready to submit. In this video, we're starting off with our fully configured cart and ready to submit. But before we create this order, you have the option of saving the order for later. This feature is super helpful if you have started out an order on one device and you want to migrate to another one, or if you want to use your order as a template and order it multiple times for identical units in the same condo building or similar units. So we're going to try this out. We're going to save the order. And when you go to the Saved Orders tab on your account, you'll see all the saved orders, all the saved carts that you've generated. And these are going to stick around so that you can recycle them or delete them as you wish. So this is the order that we just generated. You can see our cabinets named correctly, and everything is the way we have. So when we order again, it's going to push those items right back out to the cart. So finally, we're ready to submit. So when you submit, you can optionally enter the project name and the purchase order number. This we're going to call 123 Pine, and this is the island. And right now, we're only offering to include drawer boxes, but later on, we will be offering hardware, assembly, and finishing a la carte. So that means you can choose which options you want to add to your order. And you don't have to make that decision now. You can eventually add these on once you receive your quote. We're going to choose to exclude the drawer boxes for now, and we'll see what that does. So we have a chance to review the order. And once you're ready to submit, we hit request quote. Yes, I agree. And that's all there is to that. Now, in the next video, we're going to look at quotation with all of the order data. Okay, now we're returning. Okay, once you have submitted your cart, we process all of your data. Typically takes about 1 business day, and you'll get an email once that's done. So when it's ready, you can migrate over to your customer portal. And here we have the order that we submitted. And now all of the information for your project is going to live in this. Okay, you can see our quote. Prices will vary, but for now, this is what they are. So the first page that we're going to look at is the item details. Now, this is going to tell you everything about the configuration for each item in your cart. These drawings are now actually accurate according to the specifications that you provided. So you can see our 39 3/4 by 12 1/8 cabinet. Okay, these are just JPEGs, but we do have the CAD data available for this as well. You can see how many hinges and also the square feet of material that's used. If you download the PDF from this page, what you're going to get is a summary with QR codes. And if you scan this QR code, it's actually going to give you the same page. And this is the same page that you see here. That means that anyone who has that QR code is going to get the same drawings and the same information. You don't even need to be logged in to see that, which is going to be really handy for your shop people or your installers to be able to figure out what's what with the cabinets while they're installing. So on the next section, we have the component list, which is really one of the best features about this whole system. This gives you a complete overview of everything that goes into your project. And this is really a useful tool for you to manage your production process. So the first section is the most important because this is how we generate all of our pricing is based on square footage. Now, these are estimated because we're not actually doing the nest optimization for the CNC machine, although that might be a feature we add in later. This is the actual square footage of your parts, and you can see it's fairly precise. The estimated sheets is using a 20% margin, which is about average for how much waste. And in this case, 4 sheets of pre-finished maple is the case. 1 sheet provides both the side panels of the island, and 1 sheet is the finished cabinet fronts. On the hardware list, we don't give you SKU numbers for the hardware, but you can basically use any Euro hinge that's compatible. These are some inline plates. This would be for the Blum hinge is our drilling standard, but I believe that Silice inline plates uses the same pattern. Again, full overlay cup hinge, the Silice or the Blum or grass, all the standards basically use the same drill size and drill spacing. And the drawer glides, we have undermount drawer glide, the clips. So we have 3 drawers, 3 left clips, 3 right clips, and 21-inch undermount drawer slides. And again, these machinings will match up perfectly for the Blum Tandem or Movento, but they also work for the Silice or King or Grass or any of the other brands that use the same drilling standard. So I mentioned in the earlier video about drawer boxes, we're giving you the size of the drawer boxes. If you want to order these from a third-party vendor, you are welcome to take these dimensions and order them directly or make them in-house. This can help save a lot of money if you can manage the costs well, or if you want the convenience, we'll be happy to make them for you. So the same goes for the drawer and door fronts. We give you the exact dimensions to 30-second accuracy, and you can make these yourself in your shop, or we can make them for you, or you can order them from a third party. And blind front is basically any front that doesn't have a drawer box or hinges behind it. Up here, you're going to see this status. When you approve this invoice and pay it, then the status will change to in production and then finally complete. Okay. So you can pay the order. We use Stripe payment portal. You can download the quote And you can also download the article report, which is basically the CAD drawings. This zip file contains PDF drawings with all of the dimensions as you've seen from the item details, and also the DWG file, which contains the 3D model of these objects. This makes it really nice and easy for you to review. If you hit edit order, it's going to give you a little warning. And effectively, what this means is if you have to make a revision, you can send this back out to your shopping cart and add, delete, or change, update any of the objects that you want with the condition that we will have to rerun the quote for you. So it'll take about another business day to turn around. The nice thing about this system is you can quickly generate this quote and then from your customer portal, keep track of all your projects. Your data will always be there for you when you need it. When you have revisions to make, you can make those revisions at your leisure, however long it takes you to do that process. And finally, when you pay for your invoice, everything goes straight into production. So you're in full control of the process and the lead time. And production for the parts typically takes about 2 weeks. If we were adding other components onto this, like drawer boxes or assembly or finishing, the lead time might vary. For the most part, to get CNC parts edge banded, cut to size with all the machinings is about 2 weeks from the time that you place the order. That's about it. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy using our system.